Welcome to this edition of Joy in Our Town. I'm Ann Farrell Tata, your host, and today I'm delighted to welcome my guests, Bobby Hill and Susan Palmer. Bobby is the Virginia Beach Rescue Squad Foundation, and Susan Palmer is with the Virginia Beach Department of EMS. And our issue today is public safety, and we're going to be talking about responding to a crisis. So welcome to the program. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'm really excited to get into this whole subject, but before I do, I want to understand a little bit more about what you each do with emergency medical services. So Bobby, I'm going to start with you.
Thank you. I've been a volunteer for 44 years with the rescue squads in Virginia Beach, and I'm also the recruitment coordinator for the Virginia Beach Rescue Squad Foundation. So I get to go out into the public, into the community, and talk to people about joining our great organization.
And Susan?
Yes, I work in the office. I've been there since 2001, and I do some minor recruitment events with the city events like going into the high school and talking to the high school students. And I also work in our new onboarding process, bringing in volunteers with their online applications. And I also do retention and coordinating events for the volunteers like Ocean Breeze annually or Aquarium Night, just to give back to the volunteers for what they're giving to the citizen and visitors of Virginia Beach. Additionally, I also run rescue with the volunteers 2 times a month.
Oh my goodness. So wow, you're busy, one busy lady.
Yes.
Okay, so Bobby, as far as the Virginia Rescue Squads of Virginia Beach, you are an all-volunteer organization, which is one reason Susan's so busy, and you too as you're recruiting.
Yes.
But how long have y'all been in existence, and what does that entail?
The volunteer rescue squads of Virginia Beach have a really rich tradition being involved in the community. Started in the 40s when actually there was Princess Anne County before the big merger with Virginia Beach, and it transitioned into the entire city of Virginia Beach being a volunteer-based EMS system. So very rich local community involvement in getting on those ambulances and responding to the 911 EMS calls.
Now, in Virginia Beach, are y'all the only ones that have an all-volunteer? Are the others paid, or are there other volunteer agencies here too?
We're in Virginia Beach. We have around 600 volunteers that are on the street. We do have career medics that supplement the volunteer system. We have around 48, and you're going to find that we're the only volunteer-based system in the Tidewater area. Everyone around us is career medics and career EMTs.
Now, I heard that it's one of the largest in the country too.
Oh, absolutely, yes.
That's amazing. So now what exactly does the system include?
We are an emergency response system, unified emergency response system. So basically, when someone calls 911, quite often they're going to get a volunteer rescue squad unit, they're going to get a fire truck, and often we'll get a police car responding. It's based on the emergency, and we always know the emergency is in the eyes of the beholder, and so we're going to get there as quickly as we can, saturate that emergency with enough people to handle it. We can always call back off. It's easier to say we don't need more help than it is to call for it later.
So is that the dispatcher's call as far as who goes out, or just every call initially gets the fire truck and the police and the rescue squad?
The dispatchers have been trained aggressively on questions. They are given a book of type of questions that they need to ask depending on what the caller states when they call 911 as to what their emergency is. So they go down their list of questions, asking the patient or the person on the phone what their emergency is, and according to that, that's what they then dispatch to that home. We have 2 different types of calls that we go to: advanced life support and basic life support. So based on what her questions are and their answers, then she's going to send a majority of people out there, like the fire truck, the police car, and the zone car, which has the advanced life support individual on it, to assist with that emergency. And then there is the basic life support, where if they think it's not such an emergency, then they're just going to get an ambulance.
Well, in addition to those 2 classifications, what are some of the emergencies that you guys respond to?
We have your basic trauma calls, and we have your advanced trauma calls, motor vehicle accidents, different things like that. We have breathing difficulties, and our breathing difficulties can go into respiratory distress calls, which are like a cardiac arrest type call. We also have the cardiac arrest, different cardiac calls, chest pains, strokes, down to minor cuts and bruises that can be bandaged up and taken to the hospital, non-emergency. So anything from your major trauma down to your basic cuts.
What can you sort of walk us through? The whole process from from somebody first making the call or the dispatcher getting the call to, what is the whole
The
process?
dispatcher would get the call, and then they would ask the questions, and they would deem the emergency. Then they're going to dispatch to the squad that is available to go to that location. So if the locality, say it was in the Kempsville area, they would first search to dispatch a Kempsville ambulance. If a Kempsville ambulance was unavailable, they were already out on another call, then they're going to send the next available closest unit to that area for that call. Once they arrive there, all the people that are going to assist the emergency, they go through their protocols and how they've been trained to treat each type of emergency, and do so in the home, and then taking the patient to the ambulance, and then progressively doing a workup on them. Radio into the hospital to let the hospital know what is going to be coming to them. Transport, either priority 1 or no lights and siren to the hospital, depending on what the nature of the call is.
How many additional people can ride in the emergency vehicle
On the
as far as
ambulance,
family members and everything?
we can allow one family member to ride in the ambulance, and we place them in the front passenger seat of the ambulance.
Oh, so they're not back with the patient?
No.
Oh, wow. And I just realized, I didn't realize until today that there's actually a difference between an EMT and a paramedic. Can you talk
Yes.
about what those differences are?
An EMT's training consists of 15 weeks of training. They go to class 2 nights a week. It is a college-accredited course. They do the majority of their work online, and then they're coming in and they're doing their practicals, and they're getting tested out regularly with written and oral testing. Then at the end of that 15 weeks, they're sent over to get their national testing done, and those results are sent to the state. So they're dually certified with national and state here in Virginia. For a paramedic, then you're going to look at 2 more years of training.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, we do send all of our volunteers over to Tidewater Community College, and we pay for their training to move up to the advanced life support level. And at the end of that training, we also send them over for their national training. They become nationally paramedic certified, and again, that's also sent to the state. They're dually certified.
And there's no charge. I mean, it doesn't cost anything
It
to do
does
this,
not cost
right?
anything for them to do this.
Do they return, and as far as being a volunteer?
They do. We ask them to volunteer as an EMT for 1 year. Each time they go to a class, then we ask them to volunteer for 1 year.
All right, so Bobby, what do you look for in a volunteer? What's a good volunteer candidate?
Someone that they want to learn. And that's what we see today. I have people say, I can't do this, and we say, no, that's not true. You can do this. You've got to have energy, obviously.
Yeah.
You got to want to learn. You got to want to be able to do something so different that it's so foreign to them. And that's why we often, when I'm looking for someone to come, I'll say, how about doing a ride-along with us and get some idea of what it's like. And that way you can talk to the volunteers. You can see the stations. You get some idea of what it's like to be with our family. It actually, we're family, and we want you to come into it. And it's a matter of just finding, there's going to be a point in there where it clicks with people very quickly. And the excitement, there is excitement there. You are making a difference in people's lives every time that you go out there. So, and it's rewarding for the potential volunteer. They do pick up an education that maybe they never thought about. It opens up doors of opportunity to go to medical school, become a career employee with public safety around the area. So you get out of it what you put into it.
Right. And do you you don't necessarily have to have a strong science background or anything like that, right? You could just if you just have a zeal for learning and you're not afraid.
Oh, I started my education in business administration.
Oh, really?
And then once I started out on the street, started with an observer duty with one of my coworkers, because I only worked in the office.
Oh, yeah.
And I loved it, and quickly switched over to emergency medical services as my degree. So.
Wow. So what about, I know a lot of people sort of have a fear of needles or a fear of blood. I mean, is that something that they probably wouldn't be the best candidate, but is that something they can get over?
Well, there is a fear there, and
Yeah.
that people often will say, "Oh, I'm just scared. I can't do that."
Yeah.
But one thing I tell them is everything's a team approach. You go into any situation we go, starting with the training. You're going to do it from a team perspective. You're going to learn to control those feelings that you
Yeah.
have, and it's just it becomes just second nature to you. You get so focused,
Right.
and that you don't think about it quite often. So it's not as people say I'm too scared to do it.
Yeah.
Well, we're all scared of things at times, and you've got unless you try it and become involved in it, that's when you find out.
All right, so somebody that's watching that thinks, I kind of want to do that, but I'm a little afraid. I mean, talk about how I'm sure you partner them with somebody who's much more experienced, and what is I know you said 2 days a week for the training, but then what is the actually going out on the truck and being responsible for somebody? How does
We require a volunteer to volunteer 48 hours a month. We break our shifts down into 12-hour shifts from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. or 6 p.m. to 6 a.m.
do they spend the night at a place?
They do. We
So
have
you
bunk rooms at the station. We
Oh,
make it very
okay.
accommodating with kitchens and restrooms with showers, so they can shower and go to work from there if they choose to. And we have them come in and volunteer those 48 hours a month. Many of them give more than that because they like it so much.
Yeah.
Some that they can only give their 48 hours due to the fact that they have jobs and they do
Right.
other things.
So really, you can have any profession and do this on the side. That there's enough to wait. Like, do you have to take vacation time, or are businesses like the
Businesses are
reserves
pretty,
where they do
yeah.
they sort of let them off?
They're very accommodating to individuals wanting to volunteer. We've received a lot of people from the military recently, where the military is being very accommodating to them volunteering for the system and getting more education for learning about EMS.
Now, what about, do you offer any kind of training for just moms that want to learn how to do basic training, but they may not be able to
Well, what we offer
at least to
the-
get them in there to let them know that they're going to like it?
We have what we call support teams.
Uh-huh.
Not everyone has to be an EMT to be a volunteer with Virginia Beach, so often they will start out as a support team member. These are people behind the scenes,
Yeah.
because each of the rescue squads is its own 501c3, so they raise their own money.
Oh, yeah.
They buy their own equipment, so often people will start out that way, and then
Yeah.
they'll switch over. If they say, hey, I want to do more, this really looks pretty cool, and so they'll give the opportunity then to transition into the operational side, being on an emergency vehicle responding to the
Well,
call.
it sounds like there's a lot of opportunity then. It's not only the hands-on, but there's a lot of things they could do.
Well, we even have a Marine rescue team. We do water
Oh,
rescue in the city
wow.
of Virginia Beach. We're very proud
Yeah.
of our Marine rescue team. They respond to emergencies on or under the waters of Virginia Beach. So it's, like I say, we also respond to mass casualty events. We have a MCI truck team. That's what primarily I do now
Yeah.
for major events in the Tidewater area. And so that's a support team that they can start out on that as well.
Are you finding that a lot of family members, like, a dad will start and then the mom and then the kids? I mean, do you find that it piques the interest?
Yeah, we have quite a few families that
That all
volunteer. The husband comes, the wife comes, and then
Yeah.
the children also start following through.
Or maybe they meet
Most-
their spouse that way. That's
Yeah.
another way.
Yes, that happens.
Absolutely, yes.
Oh my
You
gosh,
know.
well, I can't believe we're already out of town. There's so many things I'm interested in this, but we do have to close out. But thank you both so much for
Well,
being
thank you
with
for
us
the
today.
opportunity.
I really
Yes.
appreciate it. And if you'll stay with us, we're going to actually do a CPR demonstration in our next segment with EMS. Thank you so much. This is Joy in Our Town. We'll be right back. Hello and welcome back to this edition of Joy in Our Town. I'm Ann Farrell Tata, and we are going to continue our conversation with volunteers from the EMS department. We have Mike McCracken. Mike is with the Chesapeake Beach, Virginia Beach Squad, and Derek Fuller, who's with the Princess Anne Courthouse, Virginia Beach Rescue Squad. And our issue is public safety, and our topic is CPR. So Mike and Derek, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, now I understand, I learned all about it. This is the largest volunteer organization in the country of rescue squads, and you guys are both full-time volunteers, but you have full-time jobs.
That's right.
So Mike, I'm going to start with you, and I want to hear about what your day job is, and then also how long you've been a volunteer.
So I currently work full-time with Bon Secours in the emergency department as a ED Tech Advanced. And then I've been volunteering now 8 years, but I've only been here in the Virginia Beach system for about 2 years.
And Derek, what about you?
I've been a volunteer with the system for 6 years, and my full-time job is I work for Northampton County EMS as an EMT.
Wow. Wow, so you're very well trained. You're doing double duty with these jobs.
Right.
So what does it mean to the city of Virginia Beach to have a volunteer system? Derek, I'll start with
As
you.
a community, we're glad to be able to give back service to our community that we serve so diligently. There's various opportunities, and EMS is just one of those opportunities. We have a lot of people that are out there to help save lives and keep pushing the mission of EMS, which is to provide quality pre-hospital care.
Well, and we're going to talk a little bit. I know we're going to do a CPR demonstration, but
Correct.
that's something that's really important. Is that a big part of your training when you're learning to be EMTs?
Before you even go to class, we train you in CPR first.
Oh, really? That's the first
That's
thing.
after orientation, you get CPR certified, and then we get you in class.
All right, now that may explain why I've heard that Virginia Beach has one of the highest, best statistic for survival rates with cardiac arrest. Can one of y'all talk about that?
We do. In the city of Virginia Beach, we have an above-average cardiac arrest survival rate. We're an extremely proactive EMS system and emergency service system in general. There's a lot of parts and pieces that go into fitting the pieces of the puzzle together, starting with our dispatchers that take the call, the police that service first responders as well as the fire department, and then initially the ambulance and EMS supervisors. Obviously, as we talked about earlier, when the call first goes out for the dispatcher has a lot of line of questioning, and two of the questions are, does the patient have a pulse, and is the patient breathing? At that time, the dispatcher, if the answer to both of those questions is no, then the dispatcher is able to give CPR instructions over the phone to whoever's calling in from the emergency. And then as well, we also have our police officers who sometimes get on scene first. They're also CPR certified, and most police cars also carry AEDs, so they're able to attach that and get the shock administered immediately if the rhythm that the patient's in advises that. So there's kind of a lot of pieces of the puzzle that go into making sure that we maintain that above average cardiac arrest survival rate, and it certainly there's a lot of pieces of the puzzle, like I said, that ensure that we keep that rate up.
That's really encouraging. But talk about. I'm really interested in what is it called? What is that machine? AED.
Yes.
And what does that mean?
So the AED is it's administered shock. So when a patient's in cardiac arrest, they can be in what we call a shockable rhythm. So in that case, it's what we call ventricular fibrillation or ventricular tachycardia. So those are the only two rhythms that a patient can be in that are shockable rhythms. And sometimes initially they're in that rhythm when they first go into cardiac arrest. And to get that patient to maintain that rhythm and to continue to administer shocks, CPR is what's most effective in keeping that rhythm. And then again, being able to resuscitate that patient.
Okay, this is fascinating to me because let's say it's a wife and her husband's having a heart attack, and maybe they're in a restaurant or something, and that's amazing that the dispatcher can actually give her some instruction, or even worst case, I guess, at home. But the dispatcher can give her instructions even if she's had no training at all?
Absolutely.
And what about, because I know that they've talked about having that machine in different places. You're hearing about them more and more readily available, but can somebody who has had no training, they can be taught over the phone how to use that?
Most of our AEDs, when you open them up, they have instructions when you open them up. So most of them come in a case, and when you open up the case,
easy to see? Because at that time you're trying to read instructions.
Right.
That's
no, the instructions are usually verbal.
Oh.
So it's usually step-by-step instructions verbally spoken out loud by the AED for bystanders that are not trained in utilizing that system.
So let's say you're in a restaurant and somebody has, some kind of cardiac problem or a heart problem. What should we do as the public nearby if there's not a doctor or an EMT also dining at the restaurant?
The first thing you always want to do, and this goes for any emergency, is call 911. You want to get help coming to you. They will be able to provide some information for what you can do to assist that patient until help does arrive, if there's not help already on scene.
And what gives that patient the best chance of actually surviving?
In a cardiac arrest event is early administration of CPR. So someone pushing hard, pushing fast, and providing quality CPR till help does arrive.
Is CPR or cardiac problems, is that one of the highest incidents of types of emergencies that you guys get?
It's one of the calls we get. It's not probably the highest.
What's the highest?
Probably breathing difficulties, I would say, is the number one.
Which don't have anything to do with CPR. You don't want them.
Everything can tie back into a cardiac event. So if you're having a respiratory issue, you can go into respiratory distress, which will then lead to cardiac arrest. So then CPR would be needed. But it takes a lot of transitions for that to happen.
All right, so let's talk about the 911 call. Okay, you guys are experienced. Are y'all the drivers of the car? Are you in the back seat? Where do you, where do y'all
We serve
position
dual
yourself?
purpose.
Oh, you do. So everyone has to learn how to drive the car,
Okay.
the truck. So you guys can do that.
Yeah.
How do you decide when you're getting in the? Is it just I call shotgun, or is it?
Usually you have a partner, so sometimes partners will switch back and forth. So I'll take a call, Mike could take a call, and we go back and forth all day long. There's some people that just like to drive, and some
Yeah.
people just like to do patient care.
All right. Now, what about as the driver, as the professional on the scene? What do you? And this is you're going to be talking to viewers here. What do you find the most helpful when you go to a call, and then the most frustrating, the biggest annoyance?
I would probably say the most helpful when we get to a call is having an area clear for us to be able to get to the patient, whether the patient's in a bathroom or a bedroom, wherever the patient is, providing us easy access into the patient. That may involve clearing the driveway for us so that we can get the stretcher up the driveway and up the stairs, making sure that all walkways are clear, and just ensuring that we have readily access to the patient, and also having a list of medications for the patient. It's
yeah.
also good to not only have a list of medications, but patient history, because sometimes we have patients when we get there, they're not able to speak and tell us.
Right.
So it's always good. A lot of people have what we call life files on their refrigerators, and
Yeah.
in those life files is a list of their medications and history.
Do you know, how important is it to actually hear from somebody that's there about it, or do you already have that from the dispatcher? You know everything going into it. Like sometimes if someone's going to tell you every detail,
Right.
and you're probably like, get out of my way.
We have bits and pieces, so from what we receive from dispatch is part of the information that we'll utilize. We don't take that for fact, just
Yeah.
because it's a spur of the moment. It's their emergency, so they might be in panic. So we will always reassess our scene and get more information as we can.
All right, and another question that it's interesting, we actually had somebody from the blood services here on another show, and we were asking them, do they carry blood on the trucks? Because, and we know it's a perishable item, but do you guys, and they didn't know, they weren't sure, and I thought, well, I'm going to ask the experts. Do you guys carry blood on the trucks for someone that, like if they've had a lot of blood loss?
We currently do not carry blood. For us, a lot of times, it being in a military area, the combat training that the military units utilize blood and whatnot, we here in the city do not currently.
So, but you probably have something that can take care of them to get them to the hospital.
Right. When we arrive on scene and a patient has a high amount of blood loss, whether it's from trauma or GI bleed, there are a number of things that can cause blood loss. We would usually initiate an IV, and we would give them IV fluids, which is normal saline, to be able to compensate for that blood loss until we can get them to the hospital to maintain that and keep them out of what we call hypovolemic shock.
All right, well, you guys have made me feel a lot safer being in Virginia Beach. When we come back, you guys are going to do a demonstration for us. So we'll be right back with the demonstration. Thank you. Okay, so we've just learned how important CPR is, and that it's something that anybody can use, and it's the first thing that an EMT is trained when they go through training. So Derek and Mike are going to give us a demonstration to show us that anybody can administer CPR. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, take it away, Derek.
All right, so the first thing we have is someone that's in a cardiac situation. So Mike's going to arrive on scene. First thing we're going to do is come to the patient's side, and check their responsiveness. So, hey, are you okay?
Hey, are you okay?
We're looking for any type of response. So right now the person has no response. So we're going to have someone call 911.
That'll be my job,
Yep.
calling
So
911.
you'll call 911. And then we're going to go right into compressions. And to do compressions, you're going to use the palm of your hand, lock your elbows. We're going to be on the center of the chest on the breastbone, and it's at a beat of 100 times a minute. So you can go ahead and do compressions. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And it's just a nice steady rhythm that we're doing compressions in.
So it's right in the middle of the chest.
Right
It's
in
not
the middle.
over the heart.
Right. Yeah, like right along the sternum or the
Okay.
breastbone there.
Yeah.
And you're going to just do hands-only CPR. The goal with that is to keep the blood circulating till help does arrive. The reason why hands-only CPR is such a big push is because people weren't willing to do mouth-to-mouth ventilations. So it saves people from having to be uncomfortable in that situation. So he would keep doing compressions till he either gets tired or can no longer do it, or until help arrives.
Okay.
So
And this is one of the reasons we have such a high rate of survival, because people are learning how to do this. So anyone can do it, and the dispatcher can help talk you through it. So nobody has to be afraid to just
Right.
try this.
Right.
Is that right?
anyone at any time can do CPR, and it's bystander CPR is what helps with that survival rate.
All
Is
right.
someone willing to perform CPR till help arrives.
Okay. All right. Well, Mike,
So-
thank you. You probably need
Yeah.
a break right now.
Yeah.
So thank you so much. You guys have been a wonderful help today, and I'm Ann Farrell Tata with Mike and Derek. Have a great day. We'll see you next time on Joy in Our Town.
This program has been sponsored by the Trinity Broadcasting Network and made possible by your telethon dollars. Your continual support can keep Joy in Our Town brought to your home every day. So write Joy in Our Town, P.O. Box A, Santa Ana, California, 92711.